Hey, Carol, can you hear me well? I'm doing it, no, we got too much feedback.
Roll.
Hello, hello.
Number 4.
Number 4. So Carol, how do I sound now? Do I sound better or worse? Better? It's like an eye exam. Better or worse? Now I'm
I was
worse.
just thinking the same.
Now I'm worse. Okay, how's that? Still too hot?
Just copy you again. Try it again.
Okay, now how does it sound? Not the greatest, but I think it's good enough for the crowd conditions. Okay. Charter Township of Plymouth Board of Trustees regular meeting for Tuesday, September 28th, 2021 will come to order. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Stewart.
Here.
Trustee Monahan.
Here?
Clerk Vorba, yes, here. Trustee Dorchevitz.
Here.
Trustee Kermy.
Here.
Treasurer Clinton.
Here.
Supervisor Heisey.
Here.
All present, we have a quorum.
Tonight's Pledge of Allegiance, how about Colleen Pober from Representative Stevens' office?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to have Chief Phillips and his team come forward. I'm going to stay seated here until the last minute so I can stay on the mic. But this is Fire Prevention Week. October 3rd through the 9th is coming up next week. And it's our tradition to issue a proclamation in honor of Fire Prevention Week. And I understand that our annual fire open house will be when?
October 16th.
October 16th.
Because the 9th is Shred Day.
Aha, the 9th is Shred Day. So the next weekend will be the open house.
The next Saturday from 10 to 2.
Okay, from 10 to 2. So gentlemen, I'd like to present, who should I, to this, Adam. So we're going to give you the Fire Prevention Week proclamation, so please hang it up in the station house. And we certainly, as always, appreciate all the great work that you do for our community. So congratulations, and let's do a great job this year of educating everybody on fire safety. Very good. Item C is the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move for the approval of tonight's agenda, Tuesday, September 14th, 2021.
Motion's made by Clerk Vorba. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Monahan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next is approval of the consent agenda, item D. Comments, questions by the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move for the approval of the consent agenda for Tuesday, September 14th, 2021.
Motion's made by Clerk Vorba. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Monahan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good. Public comment limited to 3 minutes. This will not be your only opportunity during the evening. We encourage questions and comments on individual agenda items if they are germane to that particular item, and then there will be another public comment period at the end of the meeting. So is anybody like to say anything to the board at this time? Okay, I'm going to move on to new business. Item F1 is the appointment of Gail Grieger to the Township Planning Commission. As we know, Bill Pratt recently passed away, and it is critical that we get a qualified individual on the Planning Commission as soon as possible, because we have many challenging issues ahead before the Planning Commission in the months of October and November. I'm not trying to talk you out of this, Gail, but we think that you would be ideally suited to the job. So any comments or questions, Bob?
I move to appoint Ms. Gail Grieger to the Planning Commission for a term expiring June 30th, 2024.
Okay, motion's made by Trustee Dorchevitz. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Monahan. Any comments or questions?
I have 2 questions. One is, when will she be able to get the training and where will it come from?
Training will come from Laura Haw, and then from Sherry Parmelchuk and Ken McDonald, and really everybody who is the lead and the consultants, and then also the chairman, Dennis Cebulski.
Yeah, it's mostly
Planning Association
OJT.
also has some course.
I
Yeah.
never took one.
Pardon?
I was never aware of that. There's a course, like
Yeah.
MTA?
Previously there was.
Yeah, MTA does things like that, and then
Also,
and
the
there's,
professional organization for planning.
yeah.
I don't know what it's called.
I think
Laura's
you'd be-
probably
On
a
YouTube.
member.
I think you're an automatic member if you're on the planning commission. You get, I think you're supposed to be getting their
Hope I'm not the
newsletter.
president.
Yeah, yeah, but there are certainly courses like that out there, but, and we can, I'm sure Laura has a good handle on what those are.
Okay, next question, one question for Gail is, let me get my thing here, is on the planning commission, there's a lot of balancing between private property rights and the desires of the community. How will you balance those so that we ensure the direction that this township has had for many years and not interfering, but still having a good plan?
You're gonna have to come up so we can hear you, sorry.
Private property rights is one of the things that we're always concerned about. We just went through a tree ordinance thing and that came up.
So I believe in thoughtful and well-planned development. I think it's important to hear all sides of what people have to present. And then, like you said, it's a balancing act. It's not easy. I can't tell you specifics on how I would do it without knowing what any of the issues are right now in front of me. But I would say I would take into consideration everybody's concerns and provide a lot of thoughtful determination to those decisions.
So including the property owner's concerns?
Including everyone's,
Sure.
all parties concerned, yes. I
Good.
think everybody has a voice in this.
Okay,
I think we should note for the record, because this has not been the case, I know in the last 10 months that I've served, we have been provided with and served with a single-spaced, two-paged resume. And I can only imagine, Chuck, that the answer would be discernment and prudence is the way Gail will make her decisions on the planning commission. And in layman's terms, we have the old master as the chairman there, Dennis Cebulski. So I'm looking forward to balancing the interests, and I'm 100% trusting in Ms. Grieger's competence.
okay. Then, Mr. Clerk, please take, we have a motion and a second, so
Second.
just take the roll when you're ready.
Clerk Borba, yes. Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Monahan.
Yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Please give us a call tomorrow, and we'll,
I'll swear in.
or you can swear, Jerry can swear you in, hopefully before the end of the week, and then we'll get you meeting with Laura and Dennis as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You don't have to stay either if you don't want.
Okay, item F2, this is going to be a discussion on the American Rescue Act planned funding options. We have Colleen Pober here from Representative Haley Stevens' office. Colleen is very well aware of Plymouth Township as a former city commissioner in Plymouth, and certainly somebody who has been following us for several years now and knows our issues, I think, very well. You've been following us for 25 years, that's pretty good. So you go back to the Vorvat era of. So what I've got in front of you tonight is, we're not voting on anything, and I'm just putting this out there for just in discussion, inquiry, really not, I don't know if it's debate necessarily, but just to kind of give you a picture of what we hope to accomplish with this money. Plymouth Township is expected to receive $2.83 million over the next 2 years under the Federal American Rescue Plan Act, also known as ARPA, of 2021. I laid out 4 bullet points, 5 bullet points. Those are taken directly from the federal guidelines. I just did a cut and paste. But the last 3 bullet points are really the ones that pertain to us, because we are not a healthcare provider like, say, the city of Detroit would be. We don't have any kind of economic development department or infrastructure in place to provide grants or loans to small businesses. Again, that's way beyond our capabilities. So the others are really the most pertinent to us. So replacing lost public sector revenue, using this funding to provide services, premium pay for essential workers, et cetera, and then investing in water, sewer, and, well, broadband is also not an issue for us. So it's really those last three bullet points that really apply to us. And then Bob, if you would just move on to the next page. We have, though, as you might imagine, a problem. And that is, it goes to the issue of no good deed goes unpunished, basically. And Plymouth Township historically has had special assessment districts for road projects. And so, as we know, what happens is if a homeowners association wants to improve their roads, they petition their members, then they come to us and they ask us for a special assessment district to pay for their road project. We then we do an engineering study, then we hire a contractor, we bid that out, we work with that contractor, we perform the work, we bill each individual homeowner by parcel, and then they pay us for the cost of that service. The treasurer collects that money from the residents who volunteered, for or at least a majority of them, wanted that project. They volunteered for that project to benefit themselves. So the federal government, in its infinite wisdom, has decided that a special assessment district, that all special assessment districts are revenue, that this is additional income that we have earned, when in reality, we are nothing more than a pass-through. And not just a pass-through, but a pass-through done at the request of individual taxpayers and homeowners. Now, not all SADs work that way. I understand in Canton Township, for example, they have a special assessment district that pays for their police and fire. Now, that is revenue, okay? There are other townships that have other SADs for either emergency management, police and fire, roads, parks, et cetera. Those are revenue generating. And if you apply the Bolt test, right, it is those assessments are not voluntary, right? And they are ongoing, and they further an ongoing township activity, okay?
So they're a tax.
Yeah, you could say that. Our road SADs are not like that, okay? Because they're voluntary, they're short-term. We are merely being used as a conduit for engineering and construction services and ultimately fee collection. And then when we collect the fees and the project is over, the SAD goes away, okay? So we're not making money here. We're just passing through.
We're facilitating a public service.
Exactly, at residents' request.
But if we have this much revenue, and part of that is special assessment, and we lose some other revenue, it's still, the math is still gonna work out the same way. It's still a loss of revenue, right? Unless there was additional special assessments that came in that offset.
No, I really don't see it that way, because there's a formula that the federal government wants us to use, wants everybody to use to determine revenue loss. And this formula is complicated. It goes back, you have to go back a couple years. Ginger's run the numbers, and if it wasn't for this SAD issue, Ginger thinks we would be in what kind of ballpark for allowable?
I actually have a couple of comments and a question, and then if I may.
Yeah.
So in the IFR that was provided on May 17th, I'm sorry, yes.
Is her
the
mic
interim final
on?
rule
Yes.
adopted a definition of general revenue, and it was primarily based on the Census Bureau annual survey of state and local government. And within it, it defined the term. And that term said that the revenues were to support government services. And it goes on to define different types of revenue and how that revenue was determined. It talks about a utility and how the revenue is collected to support the utility, and it would be excluded. It also talks about that the government would be able to impose by collecting, retaining the revenue, and then assigning the revenue. In Gadsby 6 of the Government Accounting Standing Board, it defines two types of special assessments. One is a service assessment, which acts like something that you would collect in your general fund. Those would be service type assessments that would be like street lights, street cleaning, or plowing services. And those types of services would normally be provided as a service from your general fund, but they could be levied as a special assessment. The second type defined under Gadsby 6 is a capital improvement assessment. This is a special assessment project or capital in nature that enhances the utility, accessibility, or the aesthetic value of the affected property, provides an improvement, an addition, or a general fixed asset or infrastructure for the benefited property, such as a street or a sidewalk, a parking facility, a curb, or a gutter. The capital improvement is a special assessment project that has two distinctive functional differences or phases. The first phase is to finance and to construct it, and the second phase is to collect it and assess it with principal and interest by levying against the benefited property, which is what we do here in this relationship of special assessment. And we have a special assessment fund. So it's not part of our general fund, but part of a special assessment fund. So my question is, in the definition of the IFR, that it's defining general revenue within the Census Bureau's annual services, saying that this is a special assessment. Are they saying that if we levy a service assessment, we have to include it, but if we levy a capital improvement assessment, we would exclude it?
Sure.
It would be nice if they looked at it the way you look at it. I think that what has happened in a lot of the coronavirus legislation that has been passed is that people were rushing to get the legislation out, and there were unintended consequences from not being more thorough. I pretty much can guarantee you nobody looked at anybody's Gadsby to try to figure this out. Right? I mean, I'm not here to BS you.
I don't think they know what a Michigan Township is.
I don't think that they know what a Michigan Township is either. And we had a conversation before the meeting started about, well, aren't there other townships who are saying the same thing? And the answer is not so much as you would think. I would think that every township would have the same scenario because the Michigan Township structure is pretty unique. And it affects you in a different way than it affects certainly cities and certainly townships in other states.
Right.
But most are rural, so.
And most are rural, so they're not dealing with the same stuff. That's exactly right. When you look at the way that townships, we used to be rural, right?
Oh, yeah.
I say we in the grander sense.
Jerry has the old zoning map with him tonight, and it's from 1952, and everything is agricultural.
My dad used to drive us around, not in 1952, but it was pretty close to that, around out here, and this was the country. So I think that that's right. I think that this is an unintended consequence. I think that there are a lot of unintended consequences with this legislation. The unfortunate reality is that of these buckets that the supervisor had put up there, the three that really matter to you guys, the lost revenue bucket is designed to be the most flexible, and it's designed to be the one that lets you do whatever your community needs. In this case, sidewalks, parks, whatever, dog parks, whatever people think that is the best thing to improve the the quality of life and the livability of your community. Oh, I didn't mean to step.
We're going to build a dog park in Plymouth City. How's that?
Yeah, fine. We got a fountain.
Yeah, long car. You were doing well.
Sorry there, trustee. But in any event, I think that the Treasury Department is twitchy about dealing with individual jurisdictions. And quite frankly, they're a little bit twitchy about dealing with the 535 count Senate offices of members of Congress. Because we all have some weird twitch that we want to say, well, wait a minute, What about the fact that this is a capital improvement SAD? And you know, the supervisor and I were talking about this. I know what this means because I've been in municipal government for 25 years. So this all makes perfect sense to me, but I'm in the vast minority. And so the Treasury likes to deal with the bigger organizations like the MML, the MTA, the National League of Cities, things like that. But it doesn't appear to be a pervasive problem. I think that it comes up, and I said this before we went on the record as well, that communities like Plymouth Township that are very well run pay attention to stuff like this more than some other communities might, or rural townships, to your point, don't have this issue. However, it's a big fat impact here.
Yeah.
You know, it takes away almost all of your revenue loss, or all of your revenue
So
loss.
stop on that one right there. If this doesn't get resolved in a way favorable to us, we will get none of the 2.83 million?
No, you'll get your 2.83 million, but you can't spend it on the broad band, and I mean broad space band, of stuff that you could spend it on under the American Rescue Plan Act provisions for the revenue loss bucket, which is designed to be the most flexible, the most wide open. You can spend it on water and sewer. You can spend it on premium pay. You can spend it on, if you built plexiglass barriers for your township offices, if you stood up a vaccination center like the city did, like Livonia did, things like that, you can reimburse your costs on that. But this bucket of money, Trustee Kermey, is supposed to be the most broadly usable. But unfortunately, what we have done in my office, the supervisor and I have been having these conversations for, I don't know, 2.5, 3 months, right?
Yeah.
And we went to Treasury, my legislative director and I went to Treasury and said, hey, this is a tricky situation, and it's Northville Township and Plymouth Township. They've said the same things to us. So you need to help us. This doesn't fit in the interim final rule. So there's a 180-page document called the interim final rule that defines the rules for how this money can be spent, how you have to report back about it, all that crap. I don't think I'm supposed to say that on the record.
You can.
But it's the interim final rule. It's not the final rule. Now, the final rule is supposed to be out in the fall. So we're in the fall. But the period for comment closed on July 21st, 2021. They got 1,000 comments. How many jurisdictions are there in the country? I mean, we have 83 counties in the state of Michigan. And we have how many? I mean, I have 26 municipalities in my district. So I betcha this wasn't one of the comments. But I also bet you that there were other comments that came up after people dug into it with their accountants and their lawyers and their finance directors and treasurers and all that stuff who said, wait a minute, what is this about? So I think that there are likely to be efforts to say, wait a minute, so we're writing a letter to Treasury and we're going to submit it through the White House to make sure that people pay attention to it. I'm not going to send it in until you look at it. You and your team look at it to make sure that I'm not misstating something. I think I know what I'm talking about, but I want you to have your eyes on it. And we're going to see if that helps. Usually when a member of Congress does that, it's beneficial. It helps. Now, whether they will reopen the comment period or take it into consideration, because quite frankly, you are excluded from using your I can't say what I was going to say. Your stuff.
Allocation.
You're at zero loss revenue because of this.
We can't use it on things like sidewalks and recreation and things like that.
Use it on
we can use
premium pay.
the
You can
vast.
use it on water and sewer.
Yeah,
and
it's going to
broadband.
go to most of all of it's going to go to water and sewer.
Right. If you can't open the door and use it on these other projects.
Yeah.
So just so I understand, and thank you for coming here tonight,
You're more than welcome.
our money allocation is not going to get any higher if we win or lose this argument,
No.
correct? Okay, just as.
You're off.
Trustee
Your
Kerr-
mic's off.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
And you guys have gotten your first half, right?
We
Yes.
did, we got that
Okay,
last
good.
week, yep.
The
But it's
state held on to that for way too long. That irritated me.
So even though there's us and Northville Township, and there were only 1,000 comments, from what I hear you saying, you are going to write a letter, put it through the White House, and bring up this issue, however small it may be to some, to the bigger picture of the allotment, and hopefully we'll be heard then.
Yeah, but what, I guess the good news in this is, if it's a small issue, and it's an exception that we're asking for, what's the big deal? Give the exception.
That's right.
If it doesn't affect all the communities in the United States of America, and it's not gonna jack anything up, you're not trying to do anything nefarious, you're trying to build sidewalks.
No, and it totally comports with the intent of the law.
It does.
Okay?
It does.
And we're not asking for a carve-out or anything special.
Nope.
We are following the intent of the law.
But
Perfect.
it would have to be an exception to the way that the IFR, the interim final rule, is written at this point in time.
Because it was just an unintended error. you know?
Oversight, an unintended error. But the language that I'm using in the letter is that Plymouth Township is unfairly disadvantaged, simply because of the structure of townships in Michigan and the nature of this township. That it's not a rural township, that it does have a lot of SADs, that you didn't ask for these SADs. People brought the SADs to you. You're doing it out of the municipal goodness of your municipal heart to let the money be a pass-through, because elsewise nobody could have it. There was when we were doing community-funded projects, like we got that money for the MITC, there was an entity up in Walled Lake, West Bloomfield, something like that, who has a neighborhood water system. And they wanted us to give them I almost said the E word, what did I call it? A community-funded project, so that they could fund their improvements to their water system. But they're not a taxing entity, so we can't do it. We wouldn't do it. We are only going to go give money through that earmarked / community-funded project mechanism to municipalities.
Right.
So, this is all, it all makes sense. So timing-wise, I don't know. You've heard from the county, you and I have been in meetings together where they've said, just hold on a minute, let's wait and see what happens. There's still things that are going to change. I think that that's right. But I will tell you that we all are we are of exactly a like mind with you. This is unjust. It's unusual and it's unjust.
Yeah, I mean, it's unjust, but it's not a justice issue. I mean, justice means that somebody's
here comes my lawyer.
that there's intent behind that. I just
Yes.
think it's
inadvertent.
It's
Not
an error.
assessing blame.
It's a bureaucratic error, and it just goes to the fact that I don't think that everybody in Washington DC knows how Michigan townships work.
Right.
Most people in Michigan don't know how Michigan townships work.
Well, that's true enough.
And when you get into the really minutia of township government, we do have this unique ability to help our residents with capital improvement projects.
So why should you be negatively impacted by that?
Because otherwise then I won't do SADs anymore, because I don't know if I'm going to get tagged again,
But I would
We don't want to
give
do that.
For some encouragement, in the beginning of the pandemic, when we were doing the PPP loans, the Paycheck Protection Program loans, when the federal government released those loans, the bankers went, "What are you talking about? We don't know how to do this." Nobody gave us any instruction, and they were frozen in place. I talked to a bunch of CEOs of banks. And so there were things that were in that were dumb. And the federal government made changes to make it not be dumb. Time frames, payback, how long do you have to qualify the use of that money so that you don't have to pay back, so it's a grant, not a loan. So the government has been pretty flexible on stuff like this surrounding the pandemic. And this ARPA money is very, very important to everybody on both sides of the aisle, to all branches of government. It's very, very important. So we're hopeful, and we're going to keep advocating for you.
So we get it, you get it, we got to get them to get it as well.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do now for the rest of our discussion, and you can sit close by or you can stay at the podium, it's your call, but because we're not trying to put you on the spot. I just want to go through.
Cool.
I just want to go through this list, which is the next page,
I'm going to
Bob.
stay here in case you need me.
So let's pretend that we get what we want, and I think, Ginger, your best case scenario let's just pretend the SAD thing never happened. Under the formula that they've given us, what do you think our general fund revenue loss formula would give us?
For 2020, our revenue loss would have been 1.5 million.
1.5. Yeah. So
Where does that come from?
Complex calculation.
It's a formula. It talks about 2019 revenues and 2020 revenues. And fortunately, in Michigan, we're stymied by the Headley Amendment, my very, very favorite amendment. that caps everybody at 2.5% tax increases, but the number that you can use in the formula is up to 4.1%, whatever is higher for your state. So we in Michigan actually get an advantage in the formula because of that.
But if there's a revenue loss as an input into the formula, where did we see a decline in revenue?
We actually calculated it from 16 to 17, 18, 19 compared to 20, and it inflates it by 4.1%.
Bob, the way,
It's smoke and
the
mirrors.
way the formula is written, everybody has revenue loss.
Yes.
You know,
That
it's one of
worked
those-
out well.
Do you?
Because we
do
were
you-
closed, right,
You got
for a
it.
while.
Huh?
Government was closed for a while.
We weren't, but yeah.
Well, but you
Well,
know
we
what I
still-
mean, you
we
weren't
still-
collecting the same fees.
Wait, I still paid my taxes.
I still paid my taxes.
Well,
too,
no,
my
I mean,
friend.
we're gonna get to that, Colleen, because I think that there's a smaller pot that's related to priority one, which I want to talk about later.
Okay.
So,
All right.
But I'm
So-
sorry, Bob,
So
just to
assessments
get
were
back
like
to your original
2.5,
question,
So it
Yeah.
canceled it out.
right? We recognize SAD revenue upon the completion of the project and when we send out the bills. So in 2017, 18, 19, we had no SAD revenue because we didn't have any projects. Then last year in 2020, we had General Drive and Litchfield Drive. Finished the projects, recognized the revenue, sent out the bills, boom, $2.5 million in revenue. That overshadowed the fact that we had this 1.5 revenue loss,
805.
right? So next year, we'll have no SAD revenue. It was just a bad timing thing for that Litchfield and General Drive.
Yeah, I get it. I was just curious. I was just trying to understand where the 1.5 million.
yeah, it's a formula. And to add insult to injury, you know, both of those SADs, General Drive was subsidized by the state of Michigan, and Litchfield was subsidized by Wayne County. So,
380.
no, so they were encouraging us to do it. So, and anyway, let's just use that 1.5, I made it 1.2. These are just some of the things that I think could be allowable if we were to break the logjam on the SAD issue. So these are things like pathways, walkways, sidewalks, the sidewalk gap program. These were all identified as priorities by our residents when we did the joint recreation plan with the city of Plymouth. I think, Colleen, that there has to be some kind of COVID-related tie-in to all of this.
Public health.
So obviously, getting people outside reduces illness and improves physical and mental health.
This is an allowable use
Oh,
for
yeah.
absolute sure.
Yeah, and reduces social isolation. And I know the city of Detroit, I've been in a lot of different meetings as you have, Colleen, and we know that other communities around us are moving forward right now on sidewalks, pathways, bike paths, walkable communities, connectivity, the whole
sure.
lot.
So
So,
may we subsidize the sidewalk repair program from this?
I would prefer that we don't, because that would set a bad precedent, and it would put other residents at a disadvantage who have already had to pay for that.
But we already have that precedent where we've subsidized SADs to build roads. Litchfield being one, there was two others,
Who's we?
750,000, right?
No, I mean, we haven't subsidized roads.
Yeah, we have. Well, through the county pass.
Well, that's county money. I mean, it's not, that doesn't come out of our general
Governmental
fund.
agreement.
Yeah, well, that's what this isn't coming out of our general fund
Well,
either.
I mean,
This is outside money, manna from
Yeah,
heaven.
this money needs to go to things that people want to improving public health and safety. And if we use this on a sidewalk repair program, you're going to have, you'll have different zones. We do this, the township, in 5 or 4 different zones.
5, yeah.
And you'll have a point where the money runs out and other people are gonna have to pay for it out of their own pocket. It's not fair to the people who paid out of their own pocket this year for the current sidewalk program. So I think we've got plenty of
That's why we're
projects.
percolating up the discussion,
Yeah, no, it's okay.
because we have done it before, where
I-
someone got a subsidy and other people didn't. So that's part one of the alternatives, in case we can't find enough places to use the money, this may be an alternative. So we just make our list. We're not making decisions, make a list, a planning list.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some more ideas at the end of the meeting, because Jeremy will talk about the sidewalk gap for the future. So I just want to move on to the next one. This would be replacing lost revenue for the Plymouth Council on Aging. Now, Colleen, I think this is another pot where I know you can do this. I've been in the meetings where you can give money to a 501c3 nonprofit that provides critical services for your community.
Absolutely.
Plymouth Council on Aging has lost at least 30,000 during the pandemic. I would, if we were to decide to give them funding, we'd obviously have to get more substantive numbers. I'm winging it based on what they've told me, but we would obviously need to have the data to back that up. I would also recommend that the city of Plymouth contribute some money to this as well, because they provide services for both communities.
Most communities are doing things around senior services.
Yeah. And unlike, like the Arts Council or anything like that, I mean, we love all the other groups that are in our community who are 501c3s, but they did not provide, nor will they continue to provide public health, training, exercise programs, anything like that, wellness programs for seniors. And they're pretty much broke at this point. I mean, they don't have a lot of money. So priority 3 would be, and this is even with the money this is still assuming that we pass through the SAD portal dispute. So priority 3 would be an implementation of a smart utility, water utility smart meter system. Mark and Pat Felrath are going to talk more about that later. This is just my quick summation of what that would be. That would be allowed under water and sewer infrastructure. I also put in there a full cleanup of Tonquish Creek. That was kind of a topical issue when I put that together. Our DPW crews have already blown up the log jam there, so.
It got shot down by the county, right?
The county was just not helpful at all, so I'm sorry to say that. So that would be priority 3. Priority 4 would be a non-first responder employee bonus. This would be for our clerical staff, DPW staff, anybody that's not police, fire, or dispatch. They already received a $1,000 bonus through the federal government. This would be for those remaining employees and non-union personnel, such as.
How many people?
Pardon me?
How many people approximately?
30,
35.
30, and then I know other communities are giving $500 to part-timers as well. We don't have that many. So.
That's what they did in Livonia.
Okay, I just threw 40 grand out there as a placeholder. And that would be allowable right now, even if we were to get hosed on the SAD issue. And then priority 5, this gets a little tricky, but this is based on a lot of the meetings and seminars that I've been a part of. And Colleen, I mean, I'm not looking for affirmation here, but I believe that there's another pot outside of the, quote, revenue loss formula, that $1.2 million. And this would be for lost revenues that we can, or lost expenditures or revenues that we can point to and say, we lost money due to the pandemic on these specific issues. So that would include like park rental. We lost money. Everybody canceled their park rentals during the pandemic. So we lost money on that. EMS fees, I think we can point to lost revenue there. Engineering fees from canceled SAD projects. When we do an SAD project, we spend up to $15,000 to show these residents what the scope and cost of that project's going to be. All of our SAD projects that we paid for went under in 2021 because people were uncertain about the future. How am I going to pay for this? I don't know. Am I going to have a job? Is the economy going to crash? People were scared. So they backed out. Engineering fees and costs due to delayed 2020 sidewalk program. We made a motion to postpone that sidewalk program because we had 200 people in here saying we're scared, we can't afford it. There's a pandemic. What are we going to do? So we incurred a lot more engineering costs on the 2020 sidewalk program because of COVID, and we can point to that. IRS charges related to COVID. This gets into the real weeds here, but as you know, Colleen, we took advantage of the federal program that allowed for federal funding for people who had to take sick leave due to COVID or COVID exposure. A lot of that were police and fire, but we also had some other people. I'm getting invoiced now by the IRS. I think they say that we owe them like $60,000 because now it's like, you didn't qualify, so we want our money back. I'm like, no. So I've sent them protest letters every time.
Have you engaged our office in that?
I think so. I think you're aware of it. I think I've sent you some of those.
Not you should.
I've sent you some of those protest letters.
Okay, I think I remember that.
Yeah, I didn't send you all of them, because that's been going back, I've been doing that since like March.
You think of it, send it to me again, and I'll
Yeah.
send it to my casework guy.
So I think we shouldn't have to pay for that. And then I do know, I've seen this in other meetings, that we can get reimbursed in the future for audit expenses relating to COVID funding.
I think you're missing a couple.
Oh, good.
Fire inspection fees, those went down for sure. Did yours go down? I know they did in a lot of other
I don't know.
municipalities.
Probably not.
Permits, building permits, things like that.
Yeah, building permits went down a little bit, but I don't know if it's really worth pursuing.
I mean, if you're digging.
Because we were never, we never closed, really. We still had people coming in here pulling permits and applying and stuff. I mean,
Again, to my earlier point, you're well-run, so.
So I think those are all sort of this, in the penumbra of funding
Some of them are a little
possibilities.
squishy, but,
Yeah,
you know, you
okay,
gotta do
I'll
what
give you
gotta
that,
do.
but I'm being creative,
Yeah,
so. Then that would pretty much cover the whole 2.83 million. But the bulk of it, even under this proposal, is going to would go to those public improvement projects like sidewalks, and then the water phase would not be going to water infrastructure, but would be going to this meter system. And why that meter system is helpful is because it will save us money in the long run. It'll provide greater value for residents. We'll have much better handle on water use and
we
consumption.
did it in the city.
You guys have done it.
Yeah.
And it's less human intensive, so we don't have to have people walking around out and, spreading disease out in the public and all that. I mean, I'm gonna put everything in the pot that I can
with
think of. So,
I think that qualifies.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's water infrastructure. You gotta bill it, you gotta know what you're using and how you pay for it. So,
One comment. Thank you for coming. And the supervisors made me aware of your continuous and consecutive communication on a monthly basis. Just one fact, it may not be true in the 11th Congressional District, but over 62% of all people in Michigan live in a township. I worked for the other association, the Michigan Municipal League, for 2 years.
Is it really 62%?
No, it's something, it's closer to 52.
That's still a lot.
Still a lot.
I find that hard to believe.
I don't, really.
But I know it's over 60.
It's all townships, man, really, when you think about it.
The last fact,
Yeah, but most of them are small.
yeah, I can
The
find out.
MTA magazine put it out last
So
week.
you're just gonna, this is just, as the song goes,
Make it up.
we've only just begun with the township. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
So at this point, Colleen, I don't want to keep you standing up there because Mark and Patrick are going to do a presentation on the AMI. And you guys don't have their gooseneck microphones.
They failed miserably.
So Patrick, why don't you come forward to the podium? I'm going to put you on the spot unless you have.
Supervisor, what does AMI mean?
Well, we're going to find out.
I put together just 5 or 6 slides just to get the discussion going, and Patrick and I can frickin' frack when it comes to answering questions. But this is, for a number of years, has been a pet peeve project dream of mine as well as Patrick's. And with some potential funding, we're kind of looking for A, some education for you all in terms of what this is, and B, I think once you understand it, we're looking for support in moving forward for this, either with with an RFP, or when we do get this funding, maybe using some of that funding towards this project. So let me, Colleen, to answer your question, what does AMI stand for? First, here's our current system, and as you'll see very quickly, compared to the other municipalities around our region and around the state, we're years and years behind when it comes to the technology regarding meter reading and water billing. So today, as you all know, because you all live in the township, you get a quarterly bill. The reason it's quarterly is because we have to send somebody to everybody's house with a wireless gadget and put it directly onto the pad that's outside of your house to get a reading for what your current meter says is your water usage. So we have to go through the entire billing area manually on foot to get that information. We do monthly billing for businesses. And like I said, manual reading, we have to do that house to house. That's summer, winter, spring, and fall. So in the middle of the winter, these guys are trudging between houses back and forth, getting manual reads from your meter reading. We have an aged infrastructure when it comes to the meters. You'll see the statistic in a second, but we don't have the staff to go and replace. How many meters would we have in the township? I mean, maybe 9,000 meters or such. We've got a lot of meters out there that have to be replaced that are currently old. And getting to this next point, when a meter is old, one of the things that Patrick has taught me very clearly is as meters age, they don't increase the amount of water that they measure, they decrease the amount of water that they measure. So you may have 1,000 gallons flowing through your meter, and it may only read 900 gallons flowing through your meter because it's old and it doesn't register as fast as well as it used to, which means we're underbilling our residents for the amount of water that they're actually using. So that gets to that non-revenue water due to old meters. And finally, with this antiquated system, we're just not providing the customer service level that our residents deserve. So if you could move on, Bob. So Colleen, to answer your question, the evolution of meter reading started with manual reading. Though I don't know if, well, you're all as old as I am, but I can remember meter readings knocking on your front door, going down to your basement, writing on a piece of paper what the meter was, and then going back to their location.
We let those guys in our house.
We did, yeah, exactly.
We're such a trusting group.
We haven't moved far. We, Plymouth Township, have not moved far off of that system. What we did is we put a pad, a touch pad on the outside of your house, so they don't have to come into your house, but they still have to come to your house to touch that pad in order to get the water meter reading for that particular house. Well, most of the world has passed by that and gone to, at one point during the 90s and the 2000s, right, automated meter readers, right? There's a gadget that's on the outside of your house that's connected to your meter that will send off a radio signal, and you can drive by with a car, right? That's what Canton does. It just has an automatic sensor that goes through the neighborhoods and collects the data through these radio signals.
Once every quarter,
Doesn't have to be.
but that's what they're doing in Canton for a
Canton,
house.
because of I think now they're billing once every 2 months.
So they drive the truck through the neighborhood once every 2 months.
Correct, yeah.
It's not real time.
It's not real time. That's still considered old technology today, right? But it's an improvement over what we have. Today, anybody that's putting in a new system is doing AMI, which is Advanced Metering Infrastructure. The same type of technology on your house, it's going to have some type of a gadget that gives over radio frequency, but instead of having to drive around or walk around, they can be a series of towers around the township, probably 6 to 8 towers, that will gather this data real time. You'll see in a couple slides the benefits of that. So we are suggesting that we move to an AMI system, which will require that every single meter be replaced, that we put a new radio frequency gadget on the outside of your house, and then we put this infrastructure in place so it'll automatically gather real-time data to do the readings, transmit it to a data gathering source, and pump it right into the billing system with no human intervention whatsoever. So that's the kind of the sense that you're getting here with this, are the components of it, right? I already described. We would put a meter and a transmitter at the home. We would have these towers around the township that would automatically, real-time, continuously collect that data, that would automatically pumped back to the meter data management system. And then that can come into our billing system, or it can go to a cloud-based system, you know, what you want to do with your billing. And those little charts over to the right show you the real-time data that can be achieved by doing this. Just think about the difference between getting real-time data on what your water usage is versus a snapshot every single quarter. It's
Well,
pretty
if you,
incredible.
it seems if you have a leak or like a stuck, you know, people that got those stuck,
The sump
backup
pumps?
sump
Sump pumps.
pumps.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had, some people had $4,000 or $5,000 bills.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens more frequently than you would
Than
think.
you think.
And Patrick, unfortunately, is always the recipient of those complaints. Because people we'll do a quarterly read, and then we will send them a notice saying, wow, you had a lot of usage last quarter.
you must
Instead of
be
your
really
normal
clean."
5,000 gallons, you used 100,000 gallons. While you were in Florida, all the, even more amazing. But that's usually a toilet that's running, a sink that's running, a sump pump that went awry. People who have irrigation systems during the summer, that springs a leak and that just pumps water into the ground. There are a lot of reasons why that could happen, but we can't catch it until we do that quarterly read. And then we have to come back to people and say, we're sorry, but you used the water and we have to bill you. And we give some types of concessions, but that's the biggest customer service benefit that could be achieved with something like this. This next slide is just we had one vendor come in and give us kind of a sample of what this would look like, and they recommended 8 of these towers could be used to collect this data across the entire township. And the only requirement is to be put someplace up high enough, around 30 feet, so they could get clearance to all the houses and the
Where are the
businesses.
towers that I could look at in the city of Plymouth?
There wouldn't be those towers, those would just be locations. They did the analysis of the locations to figure out how many they would need and where they would add access.
I wanted to
get-
see what they look like. If the city of Plymouth has it, I wanted to see what they have.
Probably on top of either the library, the city is so small.
Does the city have that type of system though?
Yes, they're just antennas. They can be placed on a roof. Like we have our SCADA system. It's just an antenna that can be on top of a roof. So the idea would be to use township properties on top of the existing buildings. like we
How
do for
big
the
is
SCADA
this?
system.
There's
So
a
it's not really
picture-
a tower.
How tall is that
there's a
device right
picture
behind you?
you.
7 feet, 8 feet?
But I think the previous slide mentioned that.
But it has to be 30 feet off the ground.
30 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, off the ground.
But that would
So-
be affixed to an existing tower or a building or something.
Or, yeah, on the top of a roof, like we have antennas on top of
Yeah.
this roof.
It's not like they're cell towers or anything like that.
No, no, just antennas.
So Bob, you could move forward. So the benefits to the township of this AMI system, and I think you'll see that the benefits to customers is more than the benefits to the township. But, it would be revenue enhancement because we wouldn't be getting those false reads in the meters. They would be more accurate, and we would be billing residents for their actual usage versus what the meter in its aged system is actually recording. Operational savings, right? We don't have to send 6 to 7 people in the field every day going to read those meters. And there's a lot of manual intervention when it comes to the billing system to collect that data, massage that data, and then put it into the billing system. So all that operational savings cost could be achieved. No manual data handling, so we're not going to make some mistakes. Simplifies the final water bill, right? Because right now, if somebody says, I'm moving and I want my final water bill, it's a very manually intensive process because we have to go figure out the date that they're going to sell their house. We have to go out, send somebody out there, do the manual read of their meter. Where now we could just sit back on a computer and click a button and know exactly what the usage was at the day they moved out of the house. So it greatly simplifies that final water bill. Reduces the risk of employee turnover, right? Because, the people who are going out in the field and people are doing the billing, it'd be a much simpler process. Asset management is a huge one. The system has to know where every single one of these 9,000 meters is, and it's all stored in the system. So it helps from an asset management standpoint as well. And I think you're all familiar with how GLWA bills us. They predict what the peak hour, peak day is going to be. Patrick has a pretty good understanding of what that is, given some historical data, but using this hourly, daily data, we could get very, very specific on what we predict is going to be the peak hour, peak day. And that would help us reduce our water rates because we're now more confident of what that peak hour, peak day is going to be. And then the next slide and the final slide, and I won't, we won't keep beating this up, but this is going to really improve customer service. like you said, Bob, the real-time water usage reads. Now we can identify, early instances of leaks and contact the customer immediately. Not only us, but the customer would have online real-time access to their own data usage. They could bring it up on a screen and see what their water usage is on a monthly, daily, hourly usage rate. This would open up the opportunity for flexible billing. Not only cycles, we could start billing on a monthly, basis, every 2 months, but we could also change the rates so people, we could bill them one rate for peak usage and another rate for off-peak usage, right? So if you're using your water from 2 to 3, we could charge you a lower rate. And we would know from the data when they're using the water, right? So it gives us that flexibility as well. And finally, quicker delivery of bills. I've always had trouble with our current system, through nobody's fault, but we have to send people out, get this information from every single household in a billing region. We have to bring it back to our system. We have to upload it. We have to put it in the billing system. We have to mail out the water bills. And then we tell our residents they have 21 days to pay or we're going to fine them an additional 5%. With this, we wouldn't have to do that. It would give our residents and our customers much more time and much more flexibility to pay their water bills.
Would billing have to be done by township staff, or could this data go to a third party?
The data certainly could be put into a third-party billing system, yeah.
Because we have a full-time employee right now in the DPW here at Township Hall who does nothing but water billing. She's running a ticker tape machine, that prints out these cards with dot matrix numbers on it, and it's all manual. It all has to be done by hand, and it's not done off-site. And over time, it'd be nice to fully automate that system so that we could maybe press a button every month and it goes to a billing service, a collection agency, much like taxes or anything else would, that would then just do the collection on our behalf.
You still have to have somebody to resolve issues.
Oh, yeah, we still would, but.
So you
No,
have
I
to
mean,
have someone.
you can't replace that function. We still need all of that data in the BSNA system.
Yes.
Yeah, what you're just suggesting is we don't necessarily have to print off all those bills internally.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the last slide, Bob, is just a summarization, right? Is that the second to last? Okay. So what is this all going to cost? It's a lot, right? And this is not the final, but just to give you a rough guesstimate of what a system like this would cost, it would be about a 3-year project to go and put all this infrastructure around the township, and it would cost for us roughly $6 million of capital outlay to do that, and then about $80,000 per year for annual maintenance to host and maintain the system. So it sounds like a lot, but if you look at the note, the majority of that $6 million is water meters already, right? And they have to be replaced as part of this process. But ours are old anyhow, right? Patrick gave me the statistic last week that 80% of our meters are 12 years or older across the entire township, and the meters have about a 15-year life. So they're gonna have to be swapped out sooner or later. Why not make it part of this AMI project and kill 2 birds with 1 stone?
So meters that are older than 15 years, there's an impeller in it, right? That's how it reads it?
Well, it's not an impeller, but it's a mechanical device that spins.
So can it go either way? It could go high or low, or sometimes it just doesn't work?
No, these are mechanical meters.
Yeah.
And with any other mechanical device, they tend to slow down. The parts wear and they move slower. So they start under registering as time goes on. And the industry practice is to change out your meters at the 15-year mark.
So is there a delta between there's always going to be leakage in the system, right? So there's some delta between the amount of water we're buying and the amount of water
What
we're
we're billing
selling.
for, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have an accurate figure or estimate for what that is per year, Patrick? How much are we?
We're averaging around 7%.
Loss?
If you look back at the previous 5 years, it's a good water loss comparatively, but that's gonna just go higher and higher the older meters if you don't replace them.
So,
If you assume that the yearly life is 15 years, can they go beyond that, and can you replace a part that would give you a more accurate reading then, rather than having to replace all the meters?
It wouldn't be economical to repair the meter,
Okay.
so these meters are replaced.
And at what point do you expect there to be a break even for the 6 million outlay? How many years would it take us to get to a break even point of what we put out?
I don't know if it's ever a cost.
Can you achieve that? I mean, do you know that? Because you say some meters, 80% have to be replaced anyway.
Federal government money,
Yeah.
about a fifth of it.
80% of the meters are gonna be at that 15-year mark by the time we change them out.
you guys are going to work on a much more detailed business case for this, I hope.
Yeah.
And
no,
then
this is-
calculate,
this
you know,
is
you're gonna have to do
This
an
is discussion.
internal rate of
Okay.
return or
Understand
break
that,
evens,
But
because there's
that's-
a lot of
Yeah,
inputs, and the water loss issue, how much labor are we going to save, how many people are we gonna lay off, you know, those kinds of things. So there's always
Yeah.
and I know the answer's gonna be, we're not gonna lay off anybody. So it's just gonna be incremental, but let's, at least how much labor we save for that task,
just keep
meter
in
reading.
mind, just keep in mind, there's a lot of intangible benefits that you can't monetize. For example, a resident pulling out a smartphone to see what his usage is. How do you monetize that? Or going onto a web portal and having that customer service, or having the ability to detect leaks early, not just for the customer, but for the township. So there's a lot of, we can do that, but I don't think you're gonna capture the benefits of customer service that are real, but you can't monetize them. And so we can go through this.
Yeah, but we're not gonna spend $6 million without a business case. $6 million without a business case and with 100% soft things.
Correct.
Which is because I feel like I'm bored tonight, I'm gonna see how much water I used on my app. Okay, so those are soft things. They're nice.
Yeah. And we started on one, and it shows the ratio greater than 1 from a benefit cost analysis. But what doesn't capture is the additional, the additional benefits that are intangible. And, I mean, we can still do that. Still do that.
Still do what?
If you want us to get into the details of additional cost benefits.
If we're gonna spend $6 million, I certainly hope we are.
Okay.
Well, I think if we're
Even
going
if it's federal money, it's still somebody's money.
only 1/6 of it would be, but it would be, we have to update our meters. I think the idea is that we should upgrade to a more modern system that will provide more customer service and value to our customers.
So the answer, short answer, Chuck, is yeah, absolutely. Yeah, before we move forward like this, we do a cost-benefit analysis. And the cost and the benefits would be hard dollar savings as well as soft dollar savings.
Okay, so that just takes care of a little bit more detail on that priority number 3. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And this is just to make you aware of it, and we would certainly be coming back at least a couple more times before we would ever pull the trigger on this. And we would have to do an RFP, we would have to find a vendor to provide the service, so there's a lot of additional steps that have to be done. We're not committing to this
Yeah,
tonight.
no, this is a big project. This is just
John?
early education.
No, I simply wanted to say, this issue, for those of us on Inside Baseball, this issue's been around for
Your
years.
mic's off too.
Yeah, well, that's maybe best.
No, it's
This issue's been around for years, and I would hope we would enlighten and educate our citizenry. And I think the supervisor has now honed a very effective newsletter, and I would like to see the mention of the substance of this in that newsletter to our citizenry, in fairness, to give them notice, before you ask me to vote for a
On what?
recommendation.
On what?
Smart meters, and what you're planning to do, this change. I know one neighbor, and it's not the previous treasurer. I know one neighbor of mine in Lake Point, who is, very much opposed.
Okay, well, you know,
Everybody's got.
You mean because of the radio frequency pollution? Is that why they're opposed?
No, I don't
yeah,
want to get into
okay.
it.
So anyway, we have to jump through a lot of hoops before we ever pull the trigger on this thing. So we're just bringing it up to you tonight so that if you see it down the road, that you're not going, well, what the heck is that? But thanks, Patrick. So that's what, that's just our discussion on ARPA funding.
Did I see somebody had a
Anybody in
hand
the public? Yeah, wait, miss? No, you have to come forward, you have to come forward, and you'll have 3 minutes, and you gotta state your name.
I'm Nancy Pride, and some of the factors that you're not thinking about is that if these meters are old inside the houses, they're brass, so don't throw them away. You might be able to collect on them. That might be where you get some of your revenue back. But the shutoff valves in those old houses probably have not been touched, moved, nothing. And you're going to say, well, just shut it off. Immediate flood in whatever area that's in. I know, because I had to replace mine. You can say, well, I'll shut it off at the main and have the guys work on it, but at some point, those electronic devices that are in the houses, are they run by batteries?
There's a question right there. Is this a,
They run by batteries?
Consumers Power gas meters have the same system.
Okay, but the ones that are, the meters that were put in our house, we were told they're made out of plastic, not brass. They are run by a battery, and if the battery fails,
It has to be replaced.
That is one type of integrated meter, where the transmitter is right on the register head of the meter and has a battery inside the meter. In our particular case, the likely scenario would be the same setup you have today. You have a meter that's hardwired to a wall-mounted receptacle on the outside of your house.
I do have that.
Yes, so I envision in a project like this, we would just replace the meter, because it is AMI compatible. We would replace the meter, no battery, similar to one you have today, but the outside receptacle would be a radio transmitter that would have a battery. So these do have batteries, they're lithium batteries, 15 years in life, but they're located on the outside of the building.
And the other thing that a lot of you don't know is, well, the police are not here. Well, the police just. The meter readers that go around are the eyes and ears in the neighborhood. They can see if an elder person is laying in their backyard in 3 feet of snow. They can see that there's a lot of footprints and it looks like somebody's home is being invaded. That is a great loss to the customer, because we have assurance that somebody's going to be walking around our house and looking on the outside physically, and may not report to the city unless they see something out of order. So as a customer, you have lost the eyes and ears of those that used to read the meters. I have never, where I live, seen a truck come down the street, never, and I drink my coffee out on the porch at 7 in the morning.
Where is this?
Never seen a truck go by. And
What municipality?
Huh?
What?
City of Wayne.
Okay.
We had to share a tower. We had to share a tower with Westland because we couldn't afford, our city is almost in receivership. We could not afford a tower just on our own merit. We had to share it with Westland. So, I don't know.
Are you a Plymouth Township resident? Are you a Plymouth Township resident?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about city and
I have a home on 8820 Marlow.
Marlin. Okay, you were talking about cities and Westland and stuff.
So
so-
I'm just telling you that this is what we're looking at. And if the batteries have to be replaced, I think the customer pays for that.
Okay, thank you.
They pay for it.
Anyone else? All righty. Okay, then we're going to move on to item 3. This is the general government proposed budget. So tonight, Ginger will walk us through her spreadsheets, and then we'll go through department by department. Or no, I guess we're not. So Ginger is giving me the signals here. Oh, and are we off? Okay. So this is the pie chart that shows that what Ginger will be explaining. I apologize for the quality. Our copier is failing, and one of the things we need to do is get a new copier, and that's in the budget. So it doesn't print very well in color. So Ginger, I will hand it over to you.
Read that?
Yeah, I can read it. I mean, it's not great, but I can read it.
I'm actually on the memo. So good evening, board members. Last meeting, we talked about public safety and the drug laws fund. So tonight we'll be talking about the balance of the general fund 2022 budget, and we'll be talking about the township revolving fund. Tonight, I'm bringing forward the supervisor's balance of the budget of $18.8 million in the general fund expenditures, and $19.2 million in the general fund revenue budget. The general fund revenues over the general fund expenditures reflect an expected surplus of $398,900. Within the 2022 requested general fund budget, you have a capital outlay budget that makes up $609,200 of projects and new equipment. The Township Improvement Revolving Capital Fund reflects a transfer in of $100,000 in revenue this year. Of that, for the reserve funds, $50,000 will be coming from the water fund this year. We'll be talking about the water budget at the next board meeting as part of the proprietary funds. And $50,000 from general fund for future capital improvements.
That's on this building is what this is referring to?
Yes, so we
Township
started
Hall?
doing that in 2020, and then we continued to do that in 2021, and we're funding again in 2022. So we're bringing those reserves up for the general government, the fire department, and the police department. We're bringing those balances so that each of those 3 categories, or those primary general government from the general fund sources, have a balance of $50,000 in reserves. And then the water department is doing a one-time contribution to the fund of $50,000, so they'll also have a $50,000 budget in reserve for those types of expenditures.
You said the water is contributing the money to the general fund for the maintenance of this building?
How the water fund is contributing to the Township Improvement Revolving Fund.
And help me out what that is?
The fund is 446, and it's in your packet.
I'm sorry?
The fund is 446.
It's for any unforeseen
The Township
maintenance
Improvement Revolving Fund.
challenges that we might have.
It's
Yeah.
It's
Well, and
separate from the general fund. It's a reserve fund that's been set aside for improvements for any capital outlays that we need for, it could be for the DPW building, it could be for the township building. We do have public service section of Public Works upstairs on the 2nd floor, and we do have a DPW building out on Port Street.
So there's $50,000 for police, fire, Township Hall, and DPW.
$50,000
Each. And that money is to be used for unforeseen maintenance issues that are of a relatively minor issue. I mean, if the roof blows off, that's not going to be $50,000, but if we need to change the locks in the police department lockup, or if we have a water heater blows up in the fire department, or a generator or something. This is.
An accrual for
Yeah.
unexpected things that go
Absolutely.
bump
And
in the
then
night.
each year, if that fund is not used, it stays at 50. If that fund is depleted somewhat, it is
Replenished?
Is that called a
replenished.
sinking fund, or is that something different?
I think that's a different concept, yeah. Okay.
The next slide, please.
So what do you want to see, Ginger?
Rotate it, please.
Yeah.
Thank
You want
you.
this one?
Yes, please. Okay, so the three main general fund revenue sources are property tax, 56%, state shared revenue and local community stabilization act funding of 16%, and program revenue of 15%. While these three sources make up 86% of the $19.2 million of revenue, they only provide 88% of the $16.6 million of funding used for the expenditures in the general fund.
What is program revenue?
Program revenue is pretty much all of the township's revenue that make up our services for
Things that are not property tax and
things that are not property tax. It would be
Not
like our
IG.
cable TV, the PEG funds, dog licenses, police and fire overtime, district court fees, parks and recreation revenue.
Fire overtime is program revenue?
Those are all just general program revenue. So if the police provide time for a special event, we send out a billing for their time, that would be program revenue.
Oh, okay, if they went to a block party on overtime.
And
Pretty
then,
small.
and then within that is charges for services, which include our building inspections, plumbing, heating, those types of inspections all make up that entire, that budget category. Next slide, please. I replaced this slide on your, at each of your chairs. I had a typo on there. You can see at the very end of the budget that the total revenues increased $1,169,300. I think I was looking at the 1 and the 6, and I did a typo in there. It probably got trigger
Point to
finger.
that on that page.
So the slide at the top, it says fiscal year 2022 funding sources of $19.2 million reflected increase of $1.1 million, or 6.5% over fiscal year 2021's amended.
It says 1.7 in the packet.
Yeah, it's just a
Correct,
typo.
which is why I've
There's
provided you a
1.7
corrected
versus
slide.
1.1. That's
Yeah.
the correction.
Yes,
Yeah, 1.1.
just a typo.
The government revenues increased $994,000 approximately over fiscal year 21, and building inspection revenues, which is the charges for services that make up part of that total, increased $174,000 approximately over
Colleen told me
2021.
He's not here.
Projected
has
revenues are up this year about $1.3 million. We have budgeted $18 million, and the projected right now is at approximately $19.3. This is primarily due to other revenue of $663. We received some grant revenue. This was public safety, public health revenue that came in from 2020. The state was a little late in getting us back some of that reimbursement revenue. Planning revenue was up. If you look at the actual budgeted revenue slides that were provided to you, you will see that building permits right now, which were budgeted, are at 1.1 million, and we've already collected 1.2. We're projecting approximately 1.3 in building permits for fiscal year 2021, and that may be slightly conservative for this year. But based on where we are as of the end of August, we had already collected 1.2 of the 1.1 million we had budgeted for this year. So revenues are slightly higher than projected. We're also seeing revenues higher in our state share revenue. In fiscal year 2021, the state provided estimates and then revised those estimates on August 27th. We have received already $201,000 more than the original estimates that were provided to us when we set the budget for 2021. And we're projected to receive approximately $250,000 more in state share revenue than what we originally budgeted. So those are some of the categories that you're seeing there. Anticipated revenue collections in the building category make up a total of 302, and that would be all of the inspection areas for not only building permits, but also for the heating, the plumbing, and the other mechanical areas.
Want us to ask questions now, or you want to finish this?
I kind of like to go through the slide, unless you have a question to the slide.
So you're going to take questions at the end of each slide, or at the end of the entire presentation?
If we could go through the entire presentation, that would be good.
Good, and I wouldn't ask you a question. Go ahead.
Next slide, please. Property taxes make up $10.7 million of the fiscal year 2022 budget. This reflects a 1.7% increase over fiscal year 21.
Was that 1.7 or 1.1?
Points.
1.7%.
Okay.
The 1.1.
Just want to make sure that wasn't the same typo.
Oh, that's correct. There was just the one,
Okay.
sorry, just that one slide. The overall property taxes are only cover 57% of the general fund's 2022 budgeted expenditures. So we budgeted 18.8 in expenditures. We're only collecting 10.7 million in property tax revenue. Next slide. The combined state shared revenue and local community stabilization act revenue reflects an increase of $336,000 over fiscal year 21. This is approximately 10.3% increase over last year, with $248,000 increased in the state share revenue and $87,000 in our LCSA funding. Our overall SSA, or SSR and LCSA cover 16% of the fiscal year 2022 budgeted expenditures. Next slide. Program revenues for services are budgeted at $2.8 million and reflect an increase of 11.7% or $297,000 approximately over fiscal year 2021. These increases are due primarily to inspections for charges for services of $174,000, which you'll see in our building department, and programs for revenue for general government of about $123,000. The program revenue makes up 15% of the overall sources of revenue in our 2022 budgeted expenditures. And then there's a note there that projected revenue reflects building inspection increases of 302, which we talked about on the last slide as well. Next slide. Funding uses. So now we're getting into our expenditure categories here. There are 8 main functions of the general fund. 84% of the 2022 general fund expenditures go to support public safety, township administration, and general government functions. Next slide. The township administration makes up 11%, general government makes up 10%, and public safety makes up 63%. Or $15.8 million of the fiscal 2022 requested, while the remaining functions make up $3 million or 16% of the total budgeted. Next slide. The last slide shows us the different budgeted expenditure categories. So this is just another way of looking at it outside of the department functions, or looking at it based on the way that within the department they budget based on expenditure categories. Wages make up 48% of our budget. Fringes make up 23%, which includes not only the active, but also our retirees or our legacy costs. Contractual services consists of 10% or approximately 10% of this, and make up 81% of our total expenditures requested in the 2022 budget, or a total of $15.2 million. I'll now open the floor for any questions.
Building department. since the money can only be used for building operations, will you provide an analysis of where we're spending versus revenue? Do we have a surplus? In other words, are we collecting more revenue than we can spend allocated to the building department?
Well, the building department expenditures are 101,371, which is provided in the packet, and then you have the charges for services. However, at the end of the year, we also go back then and we allocate out what is like an intergovernmental service charge as part of our financial audit. And there's charges for services that are provided to the building that are then charges as overhead to the general fund. So there's a percentage of that calculation that comes back to the general fund. So have I done that as an act of what would that estimate be for 2022? I have not done that.
But what happened in 2021?
I haven't done it for
Excuse me,
2021.
excuse
We
me, in
haven't finished this
2020.
fiscal year.
We just finished the audit, so what was the
columns?
outcome?
I'm sorry.
I got it up on the screen right now, this is the revenue.
So the revenue there, you're seeing at the very bottom shows 2022.
Which column again?
The colors don't show up very good there, does it? So the revenue is 1,602,500.
Right here, this column. That's 2022.
Yep. And then your expenditures for 371,
What's that account number again? 371?
it's building department. It's 758,000. I don't have the audit in front of me, so I don't remember what construction note 2 was calculated at, but we take a portion out for payroll, for accounting, for various numbers of services come out. The fire inspectors, wages and benefits come out of that.
Engineering, planning,
The planning
legal.
board, the
What I'm getting
zoning
at is how
board.
close are we getting to the limit of what we can spend on allocating these building department funds? I'm asking for a management judgment. Where are we? Are we close?
I'm lost in the sheets here, sorry.
Well, okay, so maybe you can answer that by email or next time.
I can do an estimate, but I would.
I'm just trying to
rather want a
understand where we're at.
calculation. I don't want to throw a number at.
Right, I
at the
agree,
wall.
all right.
We have to comply with Bolt. We have to comply with the Bolt decision.
Right,
And
but
so
I'd like
we-
to see
we-
it.
We don't make a profit when, in fact, Sherry Parmelchuk and Ken McDonald will tell you that when a project is finally closed out, it is common for Sherry to refund bonds or similar funds.
Bonds aren't considered
Hard to
revenue.
estimate because
No,
you have to wait till the end of the year
Yep.
to do total
Right.
actual revenues and total actual expenses
And we
to
do
those
refund, we do
calculations.
refund developers when their project is closed out. It is very common. It is also, we have also had to go back to developers for more money because they have depleted their fund with us.
Well, that's a pass-through where we pass through engineering services.
Yeah, those are usually
for
part of our
example,
escrow.
planning.
Yeah,
Right, but there's almost always some sort of escrow left over at the end of a project that we end up refunding.
I'm sorry, say again?
Said there's almost always an escrow left over in these projects that when we close it out, we've got all the documentation that we need, that we then refund that money back to the developer.
So that's what I'm seeing on the bills where it says bond refund, or this is what you're talking about is something else?
So there's a few different things out there. There's a bond, which we take for like sewer and water, which is for like a 1-year inspection to make sure nothing went wrong. And if we need to make any repairs, we
Performance
maintain that bond. Same thing with a landscape bond. The escrow is something different. That's for like inspection fees, for review fees, et cetera.
I'm not aware that we refund escrow. I'm not aware that we refund escrow money.
No, we do. There's been several in the last couple months that Sherry sends us a letter and asks, are all of your billings complete? Yes. And then she releases the remaining escrow back to the developer.
All right. So Ginger, now this is another question. This has to do with the administration fee, which can only be used for assessing and tax collection. How are we doing on that? How close are we getting to exceeding our expenses?
My understanding of property tax admin fee is to cover your entire assessment administration, the defense of the assessments for litigation purposes, and also a portion of that covers your treasury operations as well.
Agreed. So how close are we?
So the answer is, we're exact. When I set the administration fee for the year, I use the projected expenses for the Treasury Department and the Assessing Department. And I set the administration fee at what those expenses are gonna be for those two departments. So we haven't even hit, we're getting close, but our administration fee is right now at like 0.95%. It isn't quite at 1%.
So it's been 0.95 since I'm sorry, it's been 0.95 since we levied it?
No, it's gone from like 0.92 to 0.95, something like that. But we've never levied the full 1% because we haven't used that much in expense.
Okay, when will you be setting that?
Already did.
So if you look at
I mean,
the
for the next
treasurer's,
year.
Which page?
the treasurer's budget is Department 253.
I'm lost in the
I
sheets
don't
here.
have the page numbers.
All right, I'll
I'm
find
sorry,
it.
Mark, what
253?
month of the year do you set that usually?
When I
These in
Well, I
order?
use the amount that, when we do this budget, the administration fee is set and
Yeah.
put into the revenue projections. And then when I send the bills out in December 1st is when I put it into the system and send out the bills.
All right, so you gave Ginger the 0.95 or 0.92 number?
Correct.
Okay, so that's
The property tax administration fee, the revenue is 727. The assessor and the treasurer's budget is 734.
well, he just answered the question. The reason why it's exact is because he dialed it in that way. That's what I was trying to understand,
Yeah.
where it came from, where the analysis was done to get the numbers to match.
Well, the
So
seven-
Mark answered it, right?
The two departments
Correct.
exceed the admin fee currently.
Say again?
The treasurer's budget and the assessing department budget combined exceed the collection of the admin fee as proposed in the 2022 budget.
Yeah, so he's put in a safety factor there so he doesn't exceed it somehow.
Well, and that doesn't even consider litigation in the end, if litigation exceeds what is budgeted. Because we also budget for litigation in the 101-261 as well.
For the tax tribunal cases,
We have
correct?
some in there and we have some in the assessing.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have any?
Where do you want to go now, Ginger? Do you want to keep taking questions, or are you done, or?
I'm just taking questions at
Okay.
this point, yeah.
No one else has a question, I've got more.
So what are we doing tonight? We're not approving this.
Oh, no.
No, we're
It's
discussing
just,
it.
just.
This is a budget,
Information.
this is just a budget hearing for your benefit to know what's going into the budget.
We'll have the official hearing on the 12th,
Of
12th
what
of
month?
October
Oh, November 9th.
or November?
We're going to
October the
approve,
12th,
we're going to approve the budget
in November.
on November 9th.
But we're having the public hearing on the 12th of October,
Okay.
and that's been published.
So October 12th, public hearing,
Yeah,
November 9th, board approval.
right.
Correct.
So in the packet at the end of your budget, also I separated out just so that you can see the capital outlay, and that's laid out by department. So capital outlay request for this year was, as noted in the memo, is $609,200. I know we had a lot of discussion last year about that.
That does not include any drug forfeitures expenditures in
Drug
police and fire.
forfeiture was part of the public safety,
All right, so,
and drug forfeitures are not included in the general fund capital outlay requests.
so the 609, what are the top three items, capital?
Top three would be public roads and streets for gap sidewalk of $200,000. Would be parks and recreation, which is a total of 163. That's made up of several different project items if you take a look at your budget packet. And
what
the
page?
third highest item would be general government, which is for request for payroll module and a new firewall.
Say that again, request for payroll module.
We are thinking
we're
about
looking at-
transitioning from ADP to BSNA as our software, payroll software service.
We're gonna talk about that before we do it, right? You're just putting it in the budget.
I don't know if we should talk, I don't know.
Yeah, we should
I don't wanna
talk about it.
Well, why, are you the HR director? I mean,
No, but we're spending the money in ADP versus BSNA. We wanna hear the pros and cons. Everybody has a different opinion on what's the right way to go. Maybe there's some facts.
well, I think that's the administration's responsibility to determine.
This is a
who's gonna-
township.
Who's gonna
It's
apply our
everybody's
payroll.
responsibility.
No, well, then you're
It's
gonna
not
have
a
to go.
city.
Then you go through every single line item, Chuck.
Yes, that's what we do.
You're gonna vote on everything then.
Well, when you spend money, it has to be approved by the township
And
board.
that's what the budget's for.
No. The individual expenditure has to be approved when you do it.
Oh, boy,
If you're-
okay.
If you're spending with a contractor, you just can't spend $50,000 without the township board approving it and say it was in the budget. It
Well,
doesn't work that way.
We'll have a contract with somebody at some point, and then you can approve that, but we gotta
Okay.
budget the money.
Well, there it is, right there.
Okay,
So-
well, you're
we
putting the
just
cart before
agreed.
the horse.
No, we just agreed.
You're saying how things.
No, you put it in the
You
budget,
wanna-
I understand that.
You wanna veto things out of the budget so that you have. a
No,
chance to
not
talk
veto,
about
we
it.
just know what's in it.
I've just told
So,
you,
okay.
we are considering transitioning from ADP to BSNA.
All right, that's the second time I've heard that. All right, good. But wanted to know how much that would cost eventually. We'll see, right?
Yeah.
How much do you have for that, since you're being so difficult about it there? Tell me what it is then, Ginger,
If
for,
you look at the capital outlay budget, the department shows that.
please
we
don't tell me to
requested
keep looking. Tell me the page.
You got
81,200.
40 pages in here. I don't even know what page you're referring to.
At the very end of the budget, I have a capital outlay. At the auditor meeting.
So is it,
Go to the end, scroll down. Keep going.
51, 52?
I saw capital outlay was by, so
Right.
it was at the bottom of that page.
Who made this document,
Need to slide over to the right.
right? We should know exactly where it is if you made the document.
That's
Oh,
insulting.
wait a minute.
That's insulting.
I didn't print the PDF.
There's only 40, look at how many pages there are. I don't know, it's a lot.
Like page 78 in your packet. Correct?
78, yes, correct.
Okay, and up at the top under Department 261.
261, capital outlay, payroll, here it is. Right here.
72,200 is the estimated for HR and a payroll module and implementation. And then township network firewall of 9,000, which makes up the 81,200 requested for the capital equipment.
All right, Kurt, so that's a substantial expenditure. I think that the township board should look at it when you come to do it and understand why we're doing it and what the
Yeah.
soft benefits will be.
Okay, we'll do it when we decide to
Or if you
hire
decide.
or expand the ADP service.
Yeah, you
I
may
mean,
not-
The BSNA service.
You may decide not to do it at all.
That's true.
I'm trying to understand how much our revenue increase is versus our spending increase. And I don't understand how to differentiate that because we have state shared revenue.
Page 77,
77?
I think so.
Right there. 77.
Okay, so it's the last page that demonstrates the total general fund revenue sources and total general fund expenditures. That shows the Column to the right shows your 2022 over your 2021 and the percentage change of 2022 over 2021,
So revenues are up 6.5%.
which was on the first PowerPoint
Right.
slide that I showed, the 1.1 million.
And total expenditures are up what percent? Is it 3?
3%, which is the 543, which we talked about on the last two slides of the PowerPoint.
Okay.
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 Anything we can forego or not do, or
I'm sorry?
is there any ideas for improvements in the budget? In other words, reductions?
I've already cut substantially from many of the departmental requests. So, I mean, this reflects a very workable budget that keeps us within very workable parameters. And, you know, when the department heads come to us with their budget requests, it's, they request a lot of different things. Sometimes we accept it, but I'd say for everything that we accept, we probably deny at least 2 things.
Okay, it starts out this big, and then it comes down, and it comes down, and then you get it, and it's here.
Okay, so you
Help
did
me
that
again.
process already.
I'm struggling understanding this number. So 543,000 is 3% of what?
It's the increase over
Increase.
the 2021.
Oh, it's an increase.
So
Yes.
it says fiscal year 2022 over fiscal year 2021.
I see.
And if you had the colors, you could see that it's the change from these 2 columns. So what you had last year versus what you had this year is the increase versus
Okay.
the decrease.
Got it.
So if you subtract the 18.8 from the 18.2, you get the 5. Subtract the 19.2 from the 18.0837, you get the 1.1.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the colors aren't very good.
No, it's okay. I can, it's just, my eyesight's
Budget for a
not
new
so
counter.
good.
Well, what you could do is send out a good copy. I mean, you send a PDF to our email. Well, I don't have a color copy
I
machine,
think
but
we did that
So-
on August 31st. You have a PDF copy of the original.
And none of the
I think you
numbers
picked
have
them up with
changed
Sue.
since August 31st?
This is the proposed budget.
All right,
So the bottom
Unless
line
you guys give me
is
revisions,
okay.
revenue is up 1.2 million and spending is up
543.
543.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, Bob, you've got to appreciate the difficulty in getting to those numbers. And the
I
only
do.
reason is, you know, by law, we have to present a budget by September 1st.
Right.
You're only 2/3 of the way through the year, and you already have to project where you're going to be at the end of the year. So you've got to project those last 4 months before you can figure out what you're going to budget next year and figure out what that delta is. A lot of work goes into not only doing the budget for 21 and 20, or I'm sorry, 22 and 23, but figuring out where you're going to end up 21 as well, because you're only 9 months into the year at that point.
And we're doing a 23 budget as well, so we're estimating out what our risks are going to be. So based on where we are, what we know, and all of these things that we've captured, I prepared a 2-year budget for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it very much
So you have a
so.
22, but you also have a 23.
I do,
So this is to head off any anticipation of things that we need to curb now before we get to 2023, that we need to anticipate, things that we are looking at as we move forward. So while we're not voting on the 2023, this is to help us anticipate where we're going. This is to help us see what is happening with our revenues. This is to help us see what's happening with our expenditures. This is to see how our expenditures are increasing and how our revenues are keeping pace with our expenditures. This is the purpose of the 2023 budget. It's not just because I have extra time on my hands. It's so that you can see what's happening based on what we know. We have union contracts settled. We know what our millage rates are approximately. They're not expiring till 2035. We know what state shared revenue is approximately. We know what LCSA is going to be phasing out. These are things that we want to start anticipating and things that we need to start planning for as we move forward.
and
LCSA phases out 2023, so next
I-
year for 2024, that's a $400,000 revenue loss in our
I'm sorry,
budget.
what phases out?
LCSA,
Oh,
Local
that's
Community
the
Stabilization.
Personal
Budget.
property tax.
That's the replacement for personal property tax loss. So that's going to be reflected next year when we're looking at 2024. That's $400,000 in our budget.
I appreciate that very much. I didn't know how to read this until tonight, I was unable to really understand it. It's very complex, I get it. And there's a lot of detail
That's
in
why I
here.
like the PowerPoint, try to break it down into smaller categories to kind of help you see what the main categories or the primary sources are that make up the budget.
Because we used to have, a separate budget book that had tabs for each of the departments. It was a little bit easier to.
I'm not opposed to doing that.
Well, really, that's what we have here. It's just a different format, but you can track all of these by department. I can see what's being spent in clerk, treasurer, all IT, all the others.
Yeah, I'm not being critical. I was having a difficult time understanding it.
It is a different format than what we're used to.
Right.
But it's extremely detailed, and it also, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ginger, but you also had to struggle, not personally, but you had to deal with the whole change from the state of the chart of accounts.
We just completed the chart of accounts mapping at the beginning of September.
Yeah.
And I'll probably be bringing something to the board to just recognize that as we restructured some of the functions.
So all of these budget numbers that you're used to seeing in the past have all been blown up and recategorized, and then Ginger's gone even further by subcategories for each.
And I understand that.
Yeah.
What jumps out at me is if I see something that's, 25% increase year over year, I have to ask the question, is that because of the recategorization?
In many cases it is. It's just the way we've had to, by mandate, we've had to shift certain functions from one department to another, one category to another. So you may see a dramatic jump in a particular category, but that's not because we're spending more, it's just because we've shifted that traditional function over to a new area or a new department.
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, some of them have confused me as well, that, like Ginger has like jail and she's got, in the
We split that out in 21, jail and dispatch.
Yeah, jail and
functions.
dispatch, and that was something that had to be separated. So a lot of it is mandatory accounting practices, but it's not like we're not trying to be sneaky or sneak something
Or
in here.
911 audit for the state.
Yeah.
What is the name of this change? GASB something? Does it have a number?
It was mandated by the Department of Treasury. So the state of Michigan put out a letter back in 2020, and they indicated that we had a certain period of time in order to implement the changes and that we had to comply with state chart of accounts. So
it's not a GASB thing, it's a state of Michigan.
Yeah, charter of accounts change.
The Treasury actually dictates the state chart. We have to comply with that.
It's really just so, because at the end of an audit, right, Plant Moran and Ginger upload all of our financial information into a statewide system. And this allows the state to take a look across all municipalities and say, and that they're being consistent. This is what you're using on public safety. This is what you're using in this. So every single municipality has to use the exact same chart of accounts so they can all be compared equally.
And we only had 1 year to convert? They only gave us 1 year?
No, I forgot
They've been bringing
about
this
that.
out for a while. It was delayed due to COVID. So it was really supposed to be implemented in 2020 and then it was delayed. So we had to have ours implemented for 2021 in order to complete our audit this year. And we just finished our actual charting of our map in September this year.
So they could look at a
Beginning of
particular
the month.
account and determine, they could roll up how much are we spending across the state on public safety
You
dispatch?
could kind of see the categories, like you could see in the 400s, you got program revenues, in the 500s, you have federal grants. And then when you get to the 500s, below that, you can see where state grants show up. There's categories within the chart in a certain number range for certain types of revenues, certain types of expenses, and so on.
And I don't want to sing Ginger's praises quite yet because we still have one more meeting with you, Ginger, but I mean, she's had to do the chart of accounts on top of audits, federal audits, COVID, and then just the normal budget procedures, which are being, this is a far more detailed format than what we've seen in the past. And
But I'm trying to make sure we include footnotes that help to explain what the requested budget is for, if it's something above and beyond. So if it's a normal supply item that we normally budget for every year, and there's a big spike or a jump, a large increase in the request, that there's a footnote to help you understand what the request is for. Is there any questions on the township revolving improvement fund? I know that's pretty straightforward, it's just our reserve, but that's the last item I have in the packet. Or
and that's
any
that
other
thing that
questions on any
and we've
of the-
talked about that already, or is this
Yeah,
the
I think
debt
so,
service?
but I just wanted to make sure.
Because I'm
since the
looking, I
last-
see debt service and,
Yeah, he's on. He's on
What
the
debts
last-
will roll off in
He's on the last
2022?
page of the budget document.
I'm sorry, what page did you say, and what?
Last page.
He was on page 77, I believe. And the last slide is 80, which is the township improvement
okay, so
revolving
what
fund.
page do you want Bob to go to, 77?
Yeah, 77 is the last page of the general fund budget.
Okay. So that's debt service and interfund transfers.
Yeah, that's the interfund transfer out that goes to the revolving fund. That
So-
shows the 50,000 that we talked about
Yeah.
from the general fund.
So Chuck's question was, do we have any bonds that go off this year?
There's nothing expiring this year, no, not in 22.
No revolving charges at banks?
I think 2023, we have one that's the last
I think
payment.
for the building, for this building, correct?
Yeah, I think it's the one you can see down there. It says 2023. I don't remember which one it is, but one of those falls off. The last payment's due January 1 of 2024.
Wasn't that like 100,000 or something, Ginger?
It's
Mark, do you know what that is?
supposed to say 435,082.8 and 174.9.
Which one of these, if any, are the Sheldon Road underpass?
Isn't that the capital improvement for the recreation bond?
Not,
No, that was
not
for-
recreation.
No,
I don't know
this-
what it is.
Sheldon Road,
2012 bond
there's
and
only
the
three bonds.
2017 bond, I don't remember.
There's
which
only
is
3
which.
bonds left. There's the capital improvement that was done at the park and golf course. And you can see that was in 2013. There's the 2012 Township Hall. And then in 2017, as you recall, we consolidated a couple bonds
Right.
and refinanced them, and that's the
correct.
third one.
So we've already paid off the $1 million for,
I'm pretty sure
Sheldon
Sheldon Road
Road.
is gone, yeah.
I think that's been gone, yeah.
So
For a couple years.
the amphitheater would be paid off in 2023 then.
Exactly,
yeah. We're paying for it out of the tree fund, Bob. All right, any other questions for Ginger?
so we'll talk about the tree fund next time?
No, I'm just kidding, just kidding.
Well, you audit that tree fund eventually, right, every year?
Sure, everything gets audited.
Okay.
Do we have a tree fund?
Yes, we
All right.
do.
Do you have,
Okay,
That hurts.
John, Mr. Stewart.
Real quick, 15 seconds. Thank you. I had asked you for this budget a month ago, and you said you were gonna give me a hard copy in the notebook, and you did. I read it, because for me, this is my first cycle, first annual, and I read through it. It's like zero-based budgeting. Did you testify to anything tonight that was different than what was in the hard copy here? Thank you very much, and good night.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Anybody in the public? All right, then again, we will, at our next board meeting on October 12th, we will be doing the water and sewer budget, and we'll be doing, I know you call it something different,
Proprietary funds.
the proprietary funds. And so that includes the water and sewer budget, the DDA, the BRA budgets, senior transit, trash. Rubbish, yes. So then we'll wrap that up on October 12th, and that will also be the night of the formal public hearing, which hopefully will last 2 minutes. And then we'll have a pause on October 26th to make any, fine tuning that needs to be done. And then the final budget, all the budgets will come before the board then on November 9th, and that will include water and sewer and the proprietary funds, so. Thank you, Ginger, and we look forward to talking with you again next week. Ginger, don't go away, though. Item F4 is a request for proposals for audit services. So let me just tee this up. Personally, I enjoy working with Plant Moran. I enjoy the staff that they assign to us. I think they do a very good, professional, and thorough job, certainly for us. And they helped us out a lot when we transitioned from the previous administration, and we had a lot of garbage that we had to clean up, and they were a big help. And obviously, they got paid for that service, but I do appreciate the work that they performed. The dilemma that we face is that we have had Plant Moran for 23 years.
22 years.
22 years.
Since 99, I think.
98, 99. So
9.
it is not a good practice to have the same firm for that amount of time. And while they are certainly free to bid on this and be creative and make their best pitch, I think it is financially, fiscally prudent to, and also just from an audit standpoint, to go out for bids and see who else is out there. And we will, this RFP has been put together by Ginger with a strong assist from myself and Mark and Jerry. And we would go out for bids with your approval tonight, and then we would select probably the top 3 firms to come before the board for interviews, and then we would make a selection. But this is going to have to be on a fairly quick time frame because obviously we're going, as soon as the budget's done, then we have to go right back into audit season again. So again, this is not a reflection on Plant Moran. It's just the fact that it's highly unusual to have the same auditing firm for 2 decades. Ginger, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I would just echo basically what you've said. I think that it would be good, even if we had the same auditing firm, to make sure that there's a partner rotation, which I put in the RFP, as even with rotation on bids, that if we were to have a renewal after 5 years, that the entity that we select has the ability to provide those services and to rotate their partners and their staff, so that we're sure to make sure to get the best audit that we can.
They rotate every 5 years?
Yes. While we may not have an audit rotation policy, I feel that if we put that within our bidding request, that the firms, that they would provide that as a service to us. So that
Plant Moran never rotated.
I don't know what
But
the
we've
history
had
is
the
here, but it's
same
my
team
understanding.
since we've been here.
And that was the same team that was there at
Well, it was
least
Heffernan.
5 to 10 years before.
It was
So-
Heffernan, and then it became Martin.
Yeah.
Joe Heffernan.
Martin was
before
there during the previous administration for a long
Martin's
time.
been the auditor for 12 years.
12 years.
So we want to make sure there's a rotation. If we end up taking the contract past that, they should rotate the people.
But you might not have them for 5 years.
You might not.
I think it's also good to see what we might be able to get as far as what we're paying for our services as well. I think some good, healthy competition is also.
Yeah,
Now,
we'll
what firm-
find out.
I think you're right about that. It's good
What-
suggestion.
What
what we're
firms will
paid
you be
compared to
sent?
what we were paid at the city. I know the audit, regardless of the size, is the same process, but we're also have.
Putting it out for
funds.
whomever.
When I was at the county, we had a different audit firm every 2 or 3 years.
Yes, exactly.
And of course, I was a
That's why I think it's a good idea.
$1.5 billion business, so.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, Plant would certainly be able to rebid on this. We'll put it out on Mitten, the state system. We'll advertise it on our website, but it's a pretty limited pool of companies out there now that do public sector
5 to
audit.
7 good firms that can provide our services.
What's the timing again? How much time are they gonna get to
We get
respond?
3 weeks, I believe.
3 weeks?
Yeah, October 22nd, so we're gonna be moving pretty quick. But, you know, a professional auditing firm, they can press a button and send it out.
How can we attract maybe a firm from West Michigan? How do they get, I know it's on the Mitten, but should we be sending this or notifying certain firms that we may
I know
know?
that some firms have a way that you can submit an RFP. I know that I've seen it on their websites. If there's some suggestions, we can look on their website to see if there's a way to submit one.
Government, finance.
How about the GF, isn't there a Michigan?
We could advertise through GFOA.
GFOA.
Michigan
Or even
GFOA.
at
Yeah.
GFOA.
If we personally solicited them, wouldn't that look a little
Well, if we were going
unethical.
to do that, I would go out to like, maybe like the top 7 and
Okay.
submit RFPs to all of them, say that we have this available on our bid, we would like for
Yeah,
you to
but they-
apply.
They're public sector auditing firms. They have somebody in their firm that is looking at, yeah,
Yeah, all the time.
all the time.
What about Michigan Townships Association? They have a place where you can post it there.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
also have a classified section where you could post advertisements as well.
But again, I'm sure there's somebody in the firm whose job it is to check.
Well, don't make
check
any
the public
assumptions what
bids.
they're doing these
Also,
days. You
though,
never
a lot
know
of
with
them have
COVID.
places where you could upload RFPs to their websites.
Just go into
Because I've seen
BidNet
them,
or,
Baker
They don't
Tilly,
become the top
EY,
7 without having that kind of.
UHY.
there's only
Pardon?
like 5.
Yeah, there aren't many left,
Rated.
That many left.
There's
right?
only like 5, especially public sector.
Yeah.
What happened to Post Smythe and Zeal's building?
Yeah, Post Smith, Lutz and Zeal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What-
they did a lot of work for the city.
Are they
of Plymouth.
gone?
The main people that did all the public stuff are gone. They've retired.
Sign is gone from the building on
Yeah,
Amber
it's got a
Trail.
different sign, yeah,
Yeah, I don't think they do public sector audits anymore.
yeah.
I
I
think
know when we
they're,
posted at the city. we
Okay.
got like
Williamson
8
was the
Let's
guy
move
that
on.
did all their,
Yeah.
yeah.
We posted
gone?
at the city on bid.
He's retired.
Oh, yes, okay.
okay then, any other questions? Then this is just a simple motion if somebody would make.
Mr.
make it.
Supervisor, go ahead.
Have Mr. Kirby do it.
I move to authorize the Plymouth Township Clerk to post the request for proposal for professional audit services and to authorize the Supervisor and Finance Director to review the proposals and select the top 3 firms to be presented to the Board of Trustees with a recommendation for their review, possible interviews, and a final award of the contract.
Okay, motion's made by trustee Kermy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Monahan. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Monahan.
Yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz.
yeah.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes?
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Item F5.
I move that
Ladies
we-
and gentlemen, do you
it's
want to
late.
defer this to the next meeting?
I would move that we do
There
that.
is nothing urgent on this item, and
It's getting late.
Deeply appreciate
9
that.
o'clock.
I mean sidewalk, the
And
sidewalk.
Jeremy sat here all this time.
Oh, no, he's
got
been
paid.
he's been a main contributor here, so he's helped out.
getting paid,
Okay then, public comment.
I'm salary.
Hold on,
I
John.
know. I think you should take tomorrow morning.
I'm Nancy Clyde again. My address is 8820 Marlowe. I grew up in that subdivision from age 11 to 21. And I'm coming before you. It may not be something that's on your docket, but as a citizen, I need to let you know. Those houses in it's called Green Meadows, but as a child, we called it Muddy Meadows because we had dirt streets and dirt ditches. The stuff that was going on in the city of Plymouth, I think they've done a moratorium on it, which was a smart thing to do. On the tearing down of 2 houses and putting up a huge mansion on Harvey Street. The same thing is now happening in Green Meadows. We have a developer, maybe one I know for sure, possibly 2, who tear down 1 house on the corner and put up 2 houses so close you could open the window and ask for a cup of sugar. That's the kind of housing you see in Detroit. The stock of homes that are there are built on slabs or crawl space. The minute they build one of the, what I consider Bigfoots, next door to a house that's been established in that neighborhood since the late 30s for the GIs who were coming home from World War II, which my dad is one of them. He bought that house when I was 11 years old at $9,000 on a GI Bill. It did not have a garage. It did not have an addition put on it. There were 6 people that lived in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, small kitchen and dining room bungalow. And I lived in that house till I was 21 years old when I got married. Now, the stuff that is going on there when they throw up these huge houses and put a basement, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but the water table there is pretty bad. That's why those houses were put on slabs and crawl spaces. They now are putting these up so that once the basement is put in the ground and it sticks up, I would say about that high, the basement from the ground, and they now have to put the landscaping up. Well, who wants a basement bottom from the front of your house looking that big? So from the front, they can levy that down into the basement or down into the Wayne County ditches. But when they do that grading from the sides, and they don't just build on the same size lot that was there, they go out as far as this establishment, an entity will allow them to go, which is 3 feet to the lot line. So now when they grade it down, all that water from the house, as the water comes from the north or south side, hits that side of the house and goes down, it goes into the person next door. And that person might be on a slab. That water goes right straight into their structure and into their house. There is no respect for the neighborhood at all. This one builder goes in and he takes down a house, and I know you have a tree thing because I've read it several times about how you can, okay. So he goes in and he takes down the house, and I don't know if you have inspectors that come by, but he goes right to the fence and the lot line and tears down every bush, tree, or shrub. And it's gone. It's a wasteland. It's all gone. And then he builds the big structure. So where he tears down one house and puts up two, that's ridiculous. Should not be allowed. The other thing is that if he continues to build in this subdivision that way, he should only be able to put that house on a crawl space or a slab. No basement. The housing that I'm concerned about is that, yes, it really builds up the value of those houses in that subdivision, which will push the people who are in those houses, and sometimes senior citizens like myself, right out of their house. Remember, my dad paid $9,000. They now are building $400,000 homes in that subdivision that don't even meet the criteria for the homes that are in there. Okay? So they're not
Save the trees.
built at the same level of ground, so to speak. I unfortunately had an opportunity to meet the guy that was one of the realtors on a late night visit to my house when he was having a party that went on into midnight and 1 o'clock. And I said, okay, I've had enough of this. And I called the police. Now, how he figured out where I was and who put in the complaint, that's up to you to find out what happened, because I even went to the police and they didn't tell me. But he came to my front door and he said to me, your children will appreciate what I'm doing in your neighborhood because it's putting the value of your home up. When you go to sell it, you're going to make a killing. I don't want to make a killing. That's how our government and everything is in the mess that they're in. Then he says to me, oh, he looked at my hair, you're old. So when you die, this house will be a lot more valuable than now when you're alive. And I said, well, I'm one of the children of the old people you're talking about. And I do not appreciate what you're doing to the subdivision that I used to know. Now, I'd like to see if you guys would allow this to happen in Rocker Sub. Rocker Sub property was given to the county or to the state or whatever to build that sub there from my Aunt Catherine Sherry. She had a farm over there. Okay, so she gave up that land so the Rocker Sub could be built. Now, Rocker Sub, they have these long, expansive ranches. Okay, so let this developer go over there, tear down one house, and put up 3. That ought to give you more tax revenue. But I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening. So then I'm thinking, open housing, equalized opportunity to buy a home. My husband and I couldn't buy a house here in the township or in Plymouth when we were looking for a house in 1967, because each entity raised the value of the sale of each home substantially. And I'm talking $45,000 more to $35,000 more. And there was a purpose for that. I am just hoping that you are not continuing that same purpose. People have a right to buy a home in a good school district. They have a right to have a good place to live without discrimination of economics. I do not want to see any more of those houses torn down. It is somewhat a historical landmark because they're GI built homes. Yes, some people put garages and additions. That's fine. But the gentleman that's coming in there and literally decimating that subdivision, like they're trying to remove it and take those people out of there, it's wrong. It's wrong on all economics, racial, you name it, it's all wrong. Those people have a right to live there.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, anybody else in the public? Anybody on the board? All right, I've already given you an update on what to expect at the next board meeting on October 12th. It'll be mostly all those budget items that we talked about, and then we'll have Jeremy come back with sidewalk gap. Bob? John Stewart? Jerry?
And just thank Ginger again and also the Treasury Department for helping put together a really good budget. I do appreciate it.
Mark?
All set?
Audrey?
Just echo the sentiments of Terry over there. Thank you.
And Chuck?
2 things. One, may we have some police patrol data analysis, like what with all those computer-aided systems you have, something that would tell us where you're spending your patrol. Maybe it doesn't exist, but see what you can do on that. Not urgent, but hopefully you can do something. This is related to budget, but Miller Park, I want to put something in the budget to take down the 9 Chinese elms that are there and trim up from the ground the tulip trees that are there, because they're getting kind of low and it's difficult to walk under them or use that park because the trees are too low. Plus, it's probably hard on the mowing guy. But Miller Park is one place I'd like you to focus, because I think there's probably $20,000 worth of work there.
I think we only budgeted for 15,000, and that was really aimed at Lake Point, because we've got.
Also Miller Park.
Oh, is it? There we go.
Well, I guess we need to figure out who's got the ball on that.
I think we listened.
30,000 in the budget.
How much?
30.
30? Okay. We may have to up that a little bit, but but Miller Park is noted in your budget notes there, Ginger?
It says Lake Point and other park locations, tree trimming
Okay.
services, and when we had the discussion with Eric,
Yeah.
talked about the willows, and we talked about Lake Point, and we talked about Miller Park.
When we met with Eric Anderson on the parks budget.
Oh, there's Chinese elms.
Yeah,
They're
okay.
just a scrub tree, and
Yeah,
take them out and then trim the tulip trees up.
we'll talk about it, but yeah, we'll plug in a higher number. But the real thrust was to get after the trees at Lake Point, because they're.
Brentwood Park?
No,
What do you mean?
not
Where?
Brentwood, Lake Point, the soccer field areas.
Soccer field.
Yeah, well, Lake Point Park.
It's like a leafy willows or something up there.
No, there's just trees that are they're overgrown and they need to be trimmed back, and our guys cannot do it. And that was one of the reasons why we had to replace the soccer nets, because they had been destroyed by the trees over many years. So we're trying to trim the trees now so that we don't have to replace soccer nets in the future. We've had a lot of complaints about that. So, okay? Alrighty then, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Supervisor, Clerk, I move for the adjournment.
Okay, motion's made by Clerk Borba. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Monahan. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.